Ow!
Greetings, YouTube. This is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Okay, I got back from watching the host and arguing with a friend of mine on Facebook about the host. But so I wanted to go ahead and do this review, seeing how I've been waiting for this movie to come out for about a year now. I was really looking forward to it, and so I finally got a chance to watch it tonight. Okay, I have mixed emotions about this movie. Now we'll warn you all. I'm gonna try to be as spoiler free as possible, considering without giving away everything. And there are a couple of parts where I'm gonna have to go into a little detail, and I'll ask you to pause it before I say it. Now, if any of you have been watching my videos for quite some time, you know I already talked about the host and was ranting and raving about how good a book it is, and of course those of you who have heard of the book know that it's by Stephanie Meyer, who's the same author who wrote the Twilight books. And I know right off the cuff, a lot of people, it's just going to turn a lot of people off because many people didn't think that the Twilight movies were all that good, and there are many people who didn't like the Twilight books. Those books were aimed at an audience of teenage girls, teenage to sort of like young adult girls, and they were like, of course, really overly romantic fluff. I personally like the Twilight movies, like I said, but they were by far not the best books I had ever read. But I liked them for the scope of the imagination. The same thing for the host. However, as I said before in my previous videos, the host is a far cry better. The book I'm talking about is a far cry better than the Twilight books. It's a much more mature story, much more mature characters, better thought out characters, an incredible description of an alien race and its ins and outs. It's quite intriguing. If you're a if you're a writer, especially like me, I find that kind of stuff to be it really appeals to me. And so, and of course it doesn't hurt to have a good story built around it. So into the into the movie, pretty much same premise as the book. The earth has been taken over by these aliens called souls. They came and basically took over human bodies, and so the movie starts off after they've nearly taken over the entire planet. Interesting thing about these souls is that they've improved the planet. There's no more war, suffering, sickness, hunger, uh, and they've cleaned up the Earth's environment. So the Earth, from an outside observer, would look like a total paradise. But there are a few pockets of wild humans left. So the movie picks up after the souls have taken over and focuses on one particular soul who was put into the body of a girl named Melanie Strider, who was running with her kid brother Jamie, and and please excuse me, I'm recovering from from a cold. So she was running, just basically trying to survive with her kid brother Jamie and her boyfriend Jared, who she met through happenstance, thinking that they were the only humans left. So anyway, this soul wanderer gets put into her body after Melanie tries to kill herself rather than be taken alive. Uh, and the thing is that usually when a soul takes over a human body, it erases the persona, the person who was already in there, and basically becomes that person. But Wanderer isn't able to do that. Melanie has an extremely strong will, and in the end doesn't give up her body. She becomes sort of like a second mind inside of Wanderer, and Wanderer is like interrogated by another soul. They simply call her the Seeker. Seekers are actually people who actively seek out and capture wild humans that are left to basically bring them into the fold. This particular Seeker has an almost um, OCD level fascination with Wander, constantly grilling her because they know that she's a wild human. They're trying to find out um, if there are any other humans, and Melanie is trying hard to keep Wanderer from learning. And of course, as you see in my other video, Wander at first is antagonistic. Wander and the persona of Melanie are antagonistic, and Melanie's trying to keep Wanderer from finding things out. But as time goes by, their relationship softens and even becomes friendship and almost a kinship and almost a sistership, as circumstances bring them to find the other humans that are left. And what results from them finding other humans is a love triangle between Melanie and Jared and another human named Ian who falls in love with Wander, leaving Jared confused because he knows that the woman he loves is still in there, but is inhabited by another being. So the center of the story is basically that romance once it gets to the point where she finds the other humans. Now, and that's what I want to tell you to get you into the story. I'd rather everyone go and see the movie. Now, acting wise, I will admit, and I personally think that the acting was far better than in the Twilight movies. Much more genuine acting and performances. However, the movie was, I think, way too short. And so I don't think they gave things enough time to pan out naturally. When especially in between the romance that develops between Wander and Ian. They they have a lot of shots that show time passing by, a lot of the montages and things like that. But I think that it just doesn't give enough. You really they didn't give enough vocal time for a lot of the characters. It's hard to pin down some of the issues I have with the movie because it comes off pretty genuine and decent when it comes to the acting. And William Hurt playing Melanie's uncle who runs the little enclave of humans is just a joy to see. I mean, William Hurt is a good actor and he can make a good role even in the worst of movies. And I'm not saying that the host is bad by any stretch of the imagination, though there were some glaring issues. Like I said, one being the fact that they did not make the movie long enough to make the romance feel real enough. Even though it comes off as genuine, you do see them, you do see that attraction growing between Wanderer and Ian. And it's kind of funny too because you do have the sort of inside the head dialogue between between Melanie and Wanderer going on. So every time Wanderer is doing something or saying something, you'll hear Melanie interject as that little echoing voice inside the head, um, which plays off pretty well. Uh, Let me see. So, like I said, there's good characterization, and the acting is fairly decent. I really liked uh, how the actress who played Wanderer, I can't remember how you pronounce her name. It looks like it's Cerise, but I know there's another way you pronounce it, but I'd forgotten how. So please excuse me if I'm botching that up. Um, she does a pretty good job of doing of playing Wanderer and also being Melanie at the same time, though Melanie is more voice acting and just flashbacks than anything that really comes off as acting. Though her the voice acting and everything like that comes off very genuine, and the give and take between the two, it's pretty good. Uh, Let me see. The cinematography, the settings and everything like that are really good, really great. I really liked how they showed that they didn't show much of everybody in that world, but what they did show was a world that was so peaceful. It was almost like a dream. It was almost the funny thing is that the way they show people in normal clothes, it's almost like something out of a Norman Rockwell painting from the 1950s. So it was both peaceful and yet a little creepy at the same time. And you see everybody with those glowy eye things, which is what happens to a person who's infected by a soul. And that can't that and the fact that the souls are open, honest, to the point of it just being really weird. Well, then of course, alien. It adds for that. It adds for a more realistic feel about what this world is like. I mean, there's a pretty funny scene in the movie that, well, it shows off the fact that about how the souls are, because they to them things like hatred and deceit and violence are practically unknown to them, to most of them. The very thought of being violent or hurting another one of their own kind is aberrant to them. so so you have a very good setting. They did a great job trying to make things come off as genuine as possible. And of course, the Enclave, which is the look of the Enclave, and I don't want to spoil anything right here about the location of that particular Enclave that Jamie's, excuse me, Melanie's uncle, um, runs, is really really cool. I'll let y'all watch it. Those of you who have not seen that. Let me see what else we have. Music, kind of forgettable, though it does set the mood at times. So it's sort of a recurring tune throughout the entire movie. I think what they did is almost certain like orchestrated variants on that song that they did for the trailer, or the "Welcome to the New Age." I don't know the name of that particular song right off the top of my head. Let me see what else we have. So characterization, cinematography, setting. Uh, and like I said, the acting is great. Oh, and of course the girl who plays the seeker did a great job portraying her, how she is in the book. Although I don't think the seeker in the movie is quite as annoying as the one in the book. And if you haven't read the book, I highly recommend you read that book before you go see the movie. Now, like I said, negative points. I already mentioned one, being that the movie was a bit too short, so they cut out a lot. They should have established Wanderer's character a little bit better. Because in the book, Wanderer is a storyteller because of all the worlds she's visited. So she's sort of a celebrity among her people. But in the movie, all you see is the conversations, the interrogation between her and the seeker. They really chopped out a lot to try to keep the story as compact as possible. Whereas the book has a bit of a grander scope that gives you more insight into the world of the souls. And not only that, the worlds that the souls have visited through Wanderer. And that is my second point. This is my biggest gripe about the movie. And it almost killed it for me. In the book, Wanderer tells a multitude of stories about her visits to other worlds, the world of the bears, the world of the seaweeds, the flowers, the let me see, the world of the bats, and I had a bit of an argument with somebody online about the descriptions of the worlds. But what I'm saying is this is a book where Stephanie Meyer really showed off her her imagination, where she described a lot of these really cool alien worlds. And I was hoping that in the movie they would have had some stuff about that to show, because that would have been a good portrayal of Wanderer as a character. In the story, Wanderer, when she finds her way to this enclave where her uncle, where Melanie's uncle is living, they first want to kill her, but she gains a trust of the humans. And one of the ways in the book that she does it is just, telling stories about the world she's visited, and, and interacting with them, helping them to understand her better. And I think that they did a terrible disservice to the story by leaving that out. So for those of you who really enjoyed that about the book, I think you're going to find that the most disappointing part about the movie. Now, And there was something else I had wanted to say, and all of a sudden it just slipped my mind, and really was just something I would have had to have warned of a really major spoiler. But all things considered, despite its shortness and needing to have strengthened some aspects of characterization, the movie actually did surprisingly well with what it had. The romance, despite being not building it up as well and as naturally as it should have been, still came off surprisingly genuine. There were good performances. Oh, and they actually had some pretty decent action scenes in the movie. Some tragic, some actually pretty intense. And that was a plus for me because Stephanie Meyer seems to avoid, violence like the plague in her books. Or when she does it, she's so uh subtle about it and offhanded that you don't that you think that she's just, it's like it hurts her so to want to write about fighting in any way, form, or fashion. And I think that she needs to learn to not be afraid to do that, because it's gonna make her a better writer and it's gonna make her books come off better. And this movie has parts in that were just spoken of in the book. When it comes to action scenes, it has parts that were just spoken of in the books, really brought to life with those action scenes. So it really came off as really interesting, showing what was at stake involving the survival of the human race. So, all in all, like I said, the movie was pretty good, though it had some disappointing parts. I've seen the reviews of it, and I think that a majority of those reviews come from people who already had it set in their heads to not like this movie. I don't, I could say watch, and I think I did say read the book first. But this is a movie that would probably be a little bit better to those who didn't read the book first, because I think that many who did read the book are probably going to find this, like I said, somewhat disappointing. I myself am a very easy to please person, so these um negative points were not enough for me to not find the movie enjoyable and watchable. And I'd actually go and watch it again if I had somebody who was interested in seeing it, because it was still a pretty decent movie. But I'm not gonna lie to you. It could have been better. They could have made it longer. They could have added a bit more to the story to flesh out the characters, to flesh out the romance, and to flesh out the world of the souls. I think that they didn't give enough for a lot of people to really end up caring about it. And one of the things that they didn't say, they just glossed over, said, well, the world has been taken over. There's no peace. I mean, there's no war. There's no famine, all this kind of stuff. They should have explained a little bit better how the souls were taken over. Because I was talking on Facebook earlier with a friend of mine who hated the movie. And he was, one of the complaints he had was like, well, I don't see how these creatures could have even taken over the human race. It just seems so stupid. And I think he's referring to that part what I said that showed off that the souls are just so trusting. And in the book, they show a whole lot more that, yeah, the souls are trusting towards one another, but they already knew that the human race was not going to be a race that they could have trusted. They had to use of some deceit. Some souls are better with deceit than others. Let's say it like that. Deceit is not necessarily an alien concept, but it's something they would never do to each other. So they had to use deceit in order to take us over, and they did it little by little. And by the time they tipped their hand, it was too late. Too many humans had been turned. So that's something they should have put in the movie. So, like I said, on the whole, decent movie, pretty good, but far from great, and could have been better. I was just this close to being disappointed by it, but the movie had a lot of good things going for it, so it kind of saved it. And this would have been far from a movie that I would have hated anyway. I mean, there are a couple of movies though I'm easy to please, there are movies that I hated. Okay. Uh, so my suggestion is, okay, if you have read the books, lower your expectations, and you may be satisfied with it. If you haven't read the books, you may find this more enjoyable than somebody who had read the books. Though you probably would have some gripes about the story still being, feeling. Um, so that's pretty much the long and short of my review of The Host. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any comments or questions, like leave them down below in the discussion area. And like I said, as always, keep it civil. I know there are a lot of people who are rabid fans of Stephanie Meyer and people who are rabid haters of Stephanie Meyer. People, tone it down, please. Be polite. Keep it civil. Have somebody who's going to act a total fool, I will not hesitate to block them and to erase something if you're just going to be a jerk. It's just a matter of how quickly I do it. So anyway, that's it for me for now. I finally got a chance to see a movie that I've really been waiting for. It wasn't quite what I expected, but I thought it was okay. So, until next time, everyone, this is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. As always, stay lucky and stay blessed.